This time, I am going to teach you how to solve quadratic equations by completing the square. Let's get started. How to solve quadratic equations by completing the square.
There is another method that works for all quadratic expressions whether they are factorable or not. This method of finding the solutions is called completing the square. The principle behind the use of completing the square is to produce a perfect square trinomial so that the square root property can be applied. So here are the steps in solving quadratic equations by completing the square. First, transform the equation to ax squared plus bx equals negative c. Second, divide both sides of the equation by a. Third, add the square of half the coefficient of x to both sides of the equation. Fourth, factor the resulting perfect square trinomial. Fifth, apply the square root property. And lastly, solve for x.
Let's have our first example. We have x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals 0. First, we are going to transform this into this form ax squared plus bx equals c. So all we have to do is to transpose negative 5 to the right side of the equation. So we have x squared minus 4x equals positive 5. Next, we are going to add the square of the half of the coefficient of b to both sides of the equation. How are we going to do that? Okay. Leave a space. So to look for the square of the half of the numerical coefficient of the linear term or bx, so we have b over 2 squared. The value of b in the given quadratic equation is negative 4. So substitute, we have negative 4 over 2 raised to the power of 2. Negative 4 divided by 2 is equal to negative 2. And we're going to multiply negative 2 by itself. Negative 2 times negative 2 is equal to positive 4. So we are going to add 4 both sides of the equation. So we have plus 4 and then plus 4. Next is we are going to factor this perfect square trinomial. So it's so easy lang. Let's draw up your parentheses. The factor, always remember that the factor of a perfect square trinomial is a square of a binomial. So just get the square root of the first term, the square root of the last term, and copy the sign of the middle term. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 4 is 2. And the sign of the middle term, which is negative 4x, is negative. Equals 5 plus 4 equals 9. Next is you are going to apply the square root property. Cancel, cancel. Don't forget the positive negative sign here. So you have x minus 2 equals positive negative. The square root of 9 is 3. Next is transpose negative 2 to the other side. So we have x equals negative 2 will become positive 2. So we have 2 plus minus 3. So the value of x are, we have x equals 2 plus 3 plus 5. So the first value of x is 5. Next we have x equals 2 minus 3. 2 minus 3 is equal to negative 1. So the second value of x, the other value of x is negative 1. Next, let's do the checking. If this roots really satisfies the given quadratic equation. So we have first x equals 5. So we are going to use the original form of the quadratic equation, which is x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals 0. Then substitute 5 to all x. So we have here 5 squared minus 4 times 5 minus 5 equals 0. 5 times 5 equals 25. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20 and minus 5. equals 0. 25 minus 20 is 5. 5 minus 5 equals 0. So it's true. Positive 5 satisfies the given equation. Now we have x equals negative 1. So we have x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals 0. We have here negative 1 raised to the power of 2 minus 4 times negative 1 minus 5 equals 0. Negative 1 times negative 1 is equal to positive 1. Negative 4 times negative 1 is equal to positive 4. And minus 5 equals 0. 1 plus 4 equals 5. 5 minus 5 equals 0. So it's true. Negative 1 rather, also satisfies the given quadratic equation. Did you understand, class? Next example, we have 2x squared minus 1 equals 8x. So, we are going to transform this quadratic equation to this form. So, we have 2x squared transpose positive 8x here. So, we'll have negative 8x equals transpose negative 1. It will become positive 1. So, here, so we are going to divide all of the terms by 2, both sides of the equation, so that later on, when if we are going to factor the perfect square trinomial, so it will be easier if x squared or the quadratic term don't have a numerical coefficient higher or other than 1. So let's divide. 2x squared divided by 2 is equal to x squared. Negative 8x divided by 2 is equal to negative 4x equals 1/2. Next, we are going to add the square of the half of the linear term, the coefficient of the linear term, to both sides of this equation. So let's rewrite it. X squared minus 4x, leave a space, plus 1/2. So we have here b is equal to negative 4. So we have b over 2 squared. b is equal to negative 4 over 2. Negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 2 is positive 4. So plus 4 plus 4. So we are going to express this perfect square trinomial into a square of a binomial. So you still remember how we are going to do that? Okay, get the square of the first term, the square root rather of the first term. The square root of x squared is x. Also get the square root of the last term. The square root of 4 is 2. And copy the sign of the middle term. The sign of the middle term is negative. Here, we are going to add 1/2 and 4. How? Simple. 2 times 4 equals 8, plus 1 equals 9, then copy the denominator 2. That's how you're going to add a fraction and a whole number. Next, we are going to apply the square root property. Positive, negative, 9 is a perfect square. The square root of 9 is 3. Here in this case, before we are going to transpose negative 2 to the other side of the equation, we are going to rationalize the denominator. Because the denominator should be free from the radical sign. So multiply the numerator and the denominator by the conjugate of the denominator. 3 times square root of 2 is 3 square root of 2. Over square root of 2 times square root of 2 is square root of 4, and the square root of 4 is equal to 2. So here, we have x minus 2 equals 3. Don't forget the sign, positive, negative 3, square root of 2 over 2. Then transpose negative 2 to the other side. So you have x equals positive 2 plus minus 3 square root of 2 over 2. So we have two values of x. First one, we have x equals 2 plus 3 square root of 2 over 2. We also have x equals 2 minus 3 square root of 2 over 2. So the roots are 2 plus square root of 3. So the roots are 2 plus 3 square root of 2 over 2 and 2 minus 3 square root of 2 over 2. Another example, we have negative 2x squared plus 12x minus 20 equals 0. So we're going to transpose negative 20 to the other side. We have negative 2x squared plus 12x equals positive 20. Next, we are going to divide all terms of the quadratic equation by negative 2. Cancel, we have x squared. 12x divided by negative 2 is negative 6x. And 20 divided by negative 2 is negative 10. Next, we are going to add the square of the half of the coefficient of the middle term. So for this case, we have here b, which is equal to negative 6. We have negative 6 over 2 squared. Negative 6 divided by 2 is equal to negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So, plus 9 plus 9. Now, we are going to express this perfect square trinomial into the square root of a binomial. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 9 is 3. And the sign of the middle term is negative. Negative 10 plus 9 is equal to negative 1. Next, we are going to apply the square root property. Since the term located here on the right side of the equation is negative, which means that x or the roots are imaginary. So no need for you to continue the solution. When negative the ganidili, it's imaginary. Automatically, the roots or the value of x is imaginary. Always remember that, class. Got it? That's all for today about solving quadratic equation by completing the square. If you have questions, just drop your questions down on the comment section. Thank you and God bless.